The background to this may be no news to anybody at all, what I'm about to say. It may just be what everyone already does, for all I know. I don't think any of us know what all the practitioners out there actually do in the way of practicing SD. And I don't do a lot of building of models for clients. I do it occasionally. But it did occur to me that from some recent projects I've done, that what I do doesn't seem to kind of be what it ought to be if I read the book. So I've just tried to codify what I seem to be doing and see if that's helpful to other people. Our books and our courses tend to suggest it goes through something like this process. You start by defining the problem, the full boundaries, what are all the questions, what are all the things might be involved. You then set about building a causal loop structure, seeking the cause-effect relationships in the system, focusing on trying to find the feedback loops that are involved. And then there's a quite tricky bit that most people find, which is, okay, we've got this causal loop diagram, what are the stocks in this structure? Then we have to go and seek data, put it into the software, formulate the relationships between all those, validate and test it, do all the checking and stuff that you have to do, and finally, at the bottom of that process, you have a model from which you can extract some insights and answers. And that is largely done, kind of most of the top of that process is done qualitatively. You consult widely with lots of people, you try to cover the whole scope of everything that people feel is important, and you end up with a kind of shared mental model in our famous diagrams. There are variations on this. There are influence diagrams, which, as I understand it, are a slightly more disciplined approach to feedback loops. Some consultants I've worked with pursue a qualitative stock flow process, so they never draw a causal loop diagram that does not have stocks and flows in it, but it's still done qualitatively. There's Eric Wolstenholme's modular approach, and there's probably many others. But the problems seem to be, I'm talking to people who have had system dynamics work done for them, this process takes too long. It just takes too long. It costs too much in money, and particularly in time, in executive time. People don't have free time to just give to these processes. The benefits are pretty uncertain, and they come very late in the process. You get some kind of qualitative insights early on, but the real solid benefits come later on. And the real problem I've found is that really only experts can do it. No one else can do it. Right? I've lost count the number of times I've tried to teach executives to follow the standard process, and after a week, they can't do it except in the most trivial of cases. It just can't be done. I'm going to suggest there are two complementary solutions. So the first presentation is about this, what I'm coining Agile model development process, and then in the second presentation I'll talk about standard structures. But the thing about that diagram I showed you is it looks like a photocopy of what used to be called the waterfall method of IT development, right? That's the waterfall method of IT development. That's exactly how IT systems used to be developed up to the 1970s and 80s. And they don't do that much anymore, so they kind of have to do some of that. And they stopped doing it because it took too long, it cost too much, you get uncertain and late benefits, and only experts could do it, right? So the IT world seems to have been here before us. So is there a way of building what I might call an agile alternative? Because the IT world solved this problem, but with what they call an agile process. And I think you can if you kind of build it up from the fundamental principles of what our method actually is. Yes, we're trying to explain performance over time. So we start with that same thing up in the top left-hand corner, the reference mode. The second principle is that at any point in time, performance of the system depends on the quantities of the stocks. That is, we freeze time, performance stays the same. Freeze the stocks, performance stays the same. Those stocks accumulate, driven by flow rates, and decisions, external factors, and the values of existing stocks drive those flow rates. That in a sense, I think, is the theory underlying our method, and I try to resist getting any more complicated than that. So this is the simplest possible case I could find of any that I've had done or been involved in, and it's a small size IT support company working for mid-sized, smallish businesses. And we're not talking about building IT systems for Unilever or something here. We're talking about building firms, law firms, small hotel groups, that kind of thing. Now, I'm not going to read through all of the stuff on the left because that's all in the paper and I haven't got time. But basically, this is the conversation that my student had with the owner of this business. So, owner says, I've got a problem, can you help? Okay, so tell me about your problem. Can you draw it on a time chart, please? And he says, yes, I've got this problem that my clients have been reporting problems over the last 24 months. We used to be doing a good job down there on the bottom right. And my client numbers were 90. We were doing well, so we thought we'd grow the business. We got up to 135, but then we've been losing clients and things have been getting not good. So there you go. There's two reference mode charts. And do note that the top left one, at any rate, has got numbers on it, and I simply forgot to copy the numbers that were on the bottom right-hand one. So we're immediately talking numbers, right? We're not talking anything qualitative here. This is all numbers. It's this scale of problem over this time. Okay, I say, or the student said in this case, what caused the increasing rate of client problems? Well, it seems to have been to do with the work pressure that our people were under. People were working late, they were working weekends, and they log, they keep timesheets, so we know how much they were working, and we estimate that at its peak they were working 60%, the work that needed to be done was 60% more than the work that they could actually do. So where does that come from? Well, if you drill that back, there's the performance outcome at the right, drill that back, where you get to is you get to the number of staff at the bottom left and you get to the number of clients at the top. And the chart in the middle is simply putting the workload and the capacity to do the work on the same scale. Again, we give the pen to the team and say, you fill the chart in, please, and put numbers on it. I don't want any charts on here that haven't got numbers on. If you don't know what the numbers are, at least give us your estimate. All right, we can go and find out what the numbers might have been, and we'll try and figure that out. Okay, so let's get a working model. And how difficult can that be? And there is a working model of that situation. How long did that take? Half an hour. We're already giving the user useful information. You've got that scale of problem over that time scale for those reasons. Oh, so it's that much staff loss that we've experienced, or it's that much that our clients have gone down by. There's a sequence of models that you can just follow through that kind of build this up. If you just go to sdl.re M203, it'll take you through the story. They're all in the article as well. Okay, we say, so what caused the stocks to change like that? Well, it had to be the flows. That's the only thing that changes stocks. So stick the flows on the stocks and fill in the time charts again. Right? So that's the rate of client acquisition on the top left, and on the top middle, that's the rate of client losses estimated over the last 24 months. And that all happened because they took on a salesperson to build a business for them who was apparently successful for a while. What happened on the staff? Well, we were hiring about 2 per month, and we didn't really lose people very much, but in recent months we started losing people. So sketch the time chart in on that. Again, numbers. There's nothing qualitative going on here at all. So let's extend the working model. And there's the extended working model. How long did that take? That took another half hour. So now, well, what caused those flow rates? So for the first part of the process, the problem rate was the dependent variable we were trying to explain, and we ended up explaining it by what's changed in the stocks. In the second round, it's the flow rates that are the dependent variable we're trying to explain. Right? So each flow rate, what explains it? Well, what explains the top one at the top left there? Our decision to take on a sales executive. What explains the lower left one? Our decision to hire people. It's the other two flow rates we want to investigate and find out some more. So here's the principle 4 of our method. The flow rates in every situation are driven by one of 3 things. Things we decide to do, things that happen to us from outside, or existing levels of stocks. I've been working this way for many years. I can't find any other category of thing that causes flow rates to change. And in this case, decisions are client acquisition and hiring. External factors are not relevant because this is a self-made problem, and the existing stocks are clients and staff, which are already in our model. So now we all I've added in this diagram is what caused the staff to leave at that increasing rate. Well, guess what? It was the work pressure. All I've done at the top right is what caused the clients to leave at that rate. Well, it was the increasing problem rate that they were experiencing. But there's a delay. I experience a problem rate today, and it takes me 3 months to find a replacement service provider. So I'm not going to leave for 3 months until I found a good replacement. Okay, so let's extend the working model, and we added the working model to do that, and now we can start exploring some solutions. One solution of which was, we clearly can't cope with the clients we've got, so let's actually deliberately discontinue some of the clients that are most difficult for us. Actually go and help them find somebody else to support their IT needs. And that, of course, immediately brings you see the two charts in the middle there, that's workload and capacity. The little blue kick there says, okay, we've brought workload down now below the capacity of the people to do it. And raise the hiring rate at about the same time, so we get the staff going up and the client numbers start to recover as well. Okay, as I say, this is about the simplest case I can find to illustrate this. What does it look like if I compare it with what we started with? Well, we start in the same place, define the problem in terms of that time chart, the behaviour mode. Trace the causality back to the main stocks driving the outcome and quantify their behaviour over time, even if you have to estimate it. Just put a big E by it or a red ring around it or something, but whatever you do, put numbers on it. And immediately give people a working model. That's already giving them some useful information. Quantify and chart those changes over time to the flows, capture the stock accumulation, and you end up with a working model and actionable findings from that as well. And trace the causality back from each flow to the decisions, exogenous factors or existing stocks that are driving the flows. More working models, more actionable findings. And because each flow rate becomes a new dependent variable you're trying to explain, you simply go back around the loop and do it again, and do it again, until you run out of things that you can't explain. I don't think I have time, given our technical problem, to go through the second example. It is in the paper. It's to do with an electronic technology startup business. So I'll just end by saying that this is not limited to small cases like this. The most recent case I've used it on is somewhat larger and more complicated. This is to do with the attack on a patent expiring pharmaceutical product by generic newcomers to the sector. So that's all I think I have time to say.
Great. Thank you very much.
So this is the second part of the work I've been doing. Again, I've been trying to make sense of what I have been doing and turn it into some kind of general insights that I can take elsewhere. And this second piece really arises from an observation that standard or common process that is described in our books and courses is typically not what most of our consultants do most of the time. That they don't do the Agile thing either, basically because they don't need to. And the reason they don't need to is because they keep reusing over and over again well-known rigorous structures. We've got them in project management, supply chain, water resources, fisheries, infections, and so on and so on and so on. We also have numerous common structures like aging chains, word of mouth, decay, and so on, which we all know about. But I'm kind of going up to that higher level of common structures for large-scale problems. Here is a template which seems to emerge from the work I've been doing in the business domain. Of course, I'm breaking all my own rules here. There are no time charts or data in this diagram anyway, but when applied in the real world, there would be. And it's very simple. In many cases, profit comes from revenue minus costs. Revenue comes from sales multiplied by price. Sales come from customers. but only if they've got products that they want to buy. We build customers if we've got an attractive price and good products and marketing, and our staff and capacity provide our staff and physical capacity provide our ability to generate the products, win the customers, and serve their needs. But those things are costly and drive the costs at the bottom. Now, what kind of surprised me was that very, very similar systems operate in government and non-business cases as well. Some population drives demand served with products or services provided by some enterprise or groups of enterprises, made possible because they've got some physical or IT capacity and enabled by staff. Even if they're not profit-oriented, they still have to be financially viable, so the financial part of the structure still applies. It's just that you're not pursuing the same kind of aims with it. So this is a kind of very high-level architecture that can be applied with small modifications to many, many different kinds of cases. So just take one example. If you wanted to do this for a law firm, staff and capacity in a law firm are the same thing. The lawyers are the capacity of the firm to do the work. So how many lawyers have we got? How much work can they do? A bit like the IT support example I showed you earlier. They have products. They do your house purchase for you. They do your wills for you. They handle your divorce, whatever. Those are products for a law firm. Some industries have got some special characteristics that where this needs to be modified. Oil companies or mineral companies have an additional stock of things called reserves. Large-scale manufacturing like aircraft, you would have a strategic stock of order book, items on order. But with those relatively standard modifications, this is a template for a business case. But this is not the only one. We've got lots of these in our field. This is the so-called SIR model of infection, where you've got a susceptible population who get infected at some rate by people who are already infected, and they recover at some rate and become a recovered population. And that is essentially true of pretty much any disease. There may be some that have some slight differences about them, and recovered people may become susceptible again. There may be some additions that you've got to make. But at its core, that applies to any disease. Here is the rework structure in project management that has been around for, someone tell me, 50 years? Again, in any practical application, there would be huge amounts of addition, adjustment, and so on to this. But at its heart, this lies at the core of any project management dynamics. Here is the structure of fishery management, but that would be the same for any renewable resource. So the reason that our consultants, when you go out and find our consultants, they tend to work in the same domain. They don't work in pharmaceuticals one day and defence the next day and education the day after and healthcare the day after that. And the reason that they tend to pursue an area of expertise like that is because they've got really, really expert at leveraging these standard structures. And I was kind of intrigued that there might be even more to this than I thought with the piece of work I was asked to do, just an exploratory study on how international aid might be used to support the growth of export trade from developing countries. The country setting is Nigeria, so we're not talking about exporting more oil here. We're talking about people taking groundnuts over the border from Nigeria into Niger. Basically low-level informal export trading by self-employed traders. This is the structure that emerged from that. We've got active traders, those are the people actually doing the exporting at the top middle there. The thing we're trying to grow is the thing on the right, which is the volume and value of trade, and if we do a bad job, that won't grow. If we do a good job, it will grow. What has to happen for those active traders' numbers to grow? Well, there needs to be a net positive change in that number, which will be made possible if we provide more border posts, if we extend the reach of the roads from the border posts into the surrounding population. There are negative assets here. The range of banned products, you can't export rice, you can't export tomatoes, you can't export that. So we want to, that's a negative asset we want to deplete, not accumulate. We want more trained officials so that we can handle the number of people wanting to cross the border each day. There's a horrid little balancing loop in the middle there, where the more people want to trade, the more they get stuck at the border because the border can't cope with the export. There's a great video, actually. This is slightly more formal trade with big trucks trying to cross the border from Nigeria into Niger, and the average wait time there is 3 days. And a friend of mine was trying to do something in a neighbouring country, and he's been trying to get equipment into the country, and it's been stuck in the port for 6 months. Right? So these border delays are substantial. And then, of course, we've got the possible issue of corruption to worry about as well. So I built a working demonstration model of this, but this was a template that emerged from it. Right? This is the template. So the thing about that template is that is true of any border, any transport mode, air, sea, land, any region. So you can photocopy that for all of the land borders in Nigeria. I think there's about 32 of them, something like that. And it is also true, it is also the same structure, whether you're talking about the UK or China or Brazil. Again, with minor modifications and additions. In developed economies, we've largely managed to eliminate this part of the problem, and we've worked very hard to reduce that part. But the fundamental structure is essentially the same. Probably at this point, I think I need to defer to people who are better theoreticians than me, but it does occur to me that I wonder if we've been underselling what we've got, actually, in system dynamics. Because it seems to me that a properly developed system dynamic model actually is a theory of the context that it is built to deal with. It's a theory. Right? This is how it works. Right? If it's been properly developed. Okay? Now, what makes a theory kind of good? Well, it needs to fulfill 3 criteria, which should be general, useful, and true. Right? So, all red-haired people are bad-tempered is general and useful. Well, unfortunately, it's not true. So I think what we can do with our theories is we can go to the people that we're trying to help, and we can say, like any decent theory, we expose ourselves to falsification. Show us any case in which what we've just shown you is not true. We'll adjust our theory if you prove it's not true. But actually, a decent system dynamics model actually is a strong theory of the context that it is seeking to explain and help with. That's all I wanted to say.
So thank you very much for keeping the time and look at the clock. So we have time for some questions.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the slides I left out here is that one of the other problems we have in our field is we've got this thing that only experts can do our stuff, and you can only be an expert after you've been doing it for 10 years. So what are folks supposed to do in the intervening 10 years? Right? Well, that's kind of not good enough, and it's not what the consultants do. I mean, the consultants put relative novices to work at doing the adjustment and configuration of these standard solutions too. Oh, we've got some arch exponents of this here in the room. I mean, early work on renewable resources is awesome. George and so on, their work on social issues. There's lots of people who do this in this room and in this field. But as I say, I just think we haven't really been strong enough about how powerful it is what we do. Yeah.
I would completely agree with you first on the fact that these are generalized, useful, and true theories, and secondly, that we greatly underplay the importance of falsification in the scientific method, because 99% of the models in the world couldn't use the scientific method because they are structurally unable to do so. And people do not realize that this is one of the fundamental underlying strengths of a system dynamics approach. And in answer to the question that was asked a moment ago, I've done so far in my career, I think, simulation analyses detailed of 50 different at last count, 50 different large development projects in all kinds of industry. And I can tell you it was a huge boost to the development of new people, new system dynamics capability. We've got a case in point. A gentleman we hired 18 months ago who came out of a PhD program, having built one system dynamics for his model for his thesis, having taught himself system dynamics. And he's now calibrating, doing an excellent job calibrating to an extremely high standard and validating the largest single claim model, the largest claim in European history, a project of land disruption claim. And that is because there's a standard structure there, coupled with some senior experts who've worked with it quite a lot. But he's doing this, he was doing that at a high level within 2 weeks or 3 weeks of beginning the calibration effort. Wow. So it's a huge boost.
Okay, so we don't have questions anymore. So thank you very much. Thank you for Tim. Thank you Thank you to all of you, and enjoy coffee.